go 10-0 lifetime against the Jets. You know, they've never lost against the New York Jets. They just played a couple of weeks ago in the preseason. You don't see that too often, but they did play in week 4 of the preseason and now week 3 of the regular season. What are some of the matchups to watch in this game? How could Philadelphia actually move the football against this Jets team that we've seen? Are the Jets legit as they seemed on defense when you watched them Monday night against the Colts? And I said this on Tuesday's show. I see a lot of parallels between Philadelphia and Indianapolis. Two teams that went out and got a lot of veteran talent, changed the complexity of what they do. Bringing in Frank Gore, they brought in Andre Johnson. Philadelphia brings in Murray. They brought in Matthews. They brought in Bradford. But neither team addressed their offensive line. We'll dive into all these topics and more. We bring in ESPN.com NFL insider Casey Joyner, as we do each week at this time on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. And Casey, welcome aboard as we are hitting week number 3. It takes so long to get here, and then it starts moving too fast.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, it's already almost the end of September. Boom.
Just like that. Well, and we're only in week 2, but have we learned anything about some of these teams? Specifically, let's start with the Eagles. 2 weeks in, they're a disaster. I mean, obviously a surprise to many, but what have we found out about Philadelphia? And if it's a negative, can it be fixed?
We found out that, as we thought coming in, well, 2 things we found out. One, if you don't have the running game for Philadelphia, with this system, it affects your entire team, and you can't run the Chip Kelly system. That's the number 1 thing we found out. And the number 2 thing we found out is it doesn't look like Chip has something we've been talking about for a couple of years now, is if what he's doing, what he plans on doing when he comes into a game doesn't work, can Chip go to plan B? And right now, there isn't a plan B, or if there is, we haven't seen it. So those are 2 questions they're going to have to answer to see if they can around.
What is, in their struggles, Casey, so far, prize behind their struggle is what?
The offensive line play. Even though they changed the guards and had the personnel changes, Chip Kelly's always been able to coach up a good offensive line. And the offensive line is one position you can generally coach up, but the Cowboys, their defensive line, that's not a great defensive line for the Cowboys. It's good. It's not great. But their defensive line was getting penetration all game long. One metric here, Philadelphia had an 18.8% good blocking rate. That's a metric I have that measures so often an offensive line is giving its ball carriers quality run blocking. 40% is the league average. 18 is just terrible. It's the second worst showing we've seen all season. And you're never going to get a running game going if you can't get that type of product, if you can't get better numbers in that metric. And the Eagles had to find ways to stop teams from pinning their ears and getting upfield against this offensive line, or it's going to keep happening.
They let Mathis go. They let Hermans go. They brought back Alan Barbary and played him at guard. They got Andrew Gardner playing guard. They got Jason Kelsey playing center. Suggested, Casey, that the continuity is just not there. You got a lot of guys who have not played together before, and when you're an offensive lineman, that's going to be an issue. So is it that, or are they just not talented enough in the interior of their line?
It's partially continuity. It definitely is that, because the more an offensive line plays together, you can look at even metric studies that say that the more offensive line plays together, the better they'll play. But part of it also is the Cowboys just didn't have any respect for the downfield passing game. Sam Bradford's numbers right now, ESPN does a metric called total QBR. Looks at quarterback productivity, measures everything, including like running the ball and such. His total QBR on vertical passes, 11 or more yards downfield, deep throws, 1.0. That means in the last 10 years, 99% of the passes that ESPN Stats Information has measured in that time frame have done better on vertical passes than Sam Bradford. If you can't stretch the defense deep, they can sit there and play the run all game long. And the second thing, though, is that I kept wondering, as the Cowboys are pinning their ears and getting upfield and you're trying to run these zone plays and things, I'm thinking, man, if there was another team, if you had certain offensive lines in the NFL, if you saw a team doing that to you and saying we're just going to go straight upfield and not worry about getting past us and things, you'd run traps and you'd run things of that nature. And we're not seeing Philadelphia run traps, and that's not the Chip Kelly system. So I wonder what their counterpunch is if teams continue to just try and take the upfield method.
I want to get your thoughts, because I know entering this season, Casey, you were a proponent of Sam Bradford. You really like what you saw from him. Now, he's completed 66% of his passes, but a lot of it is just checkdowns and underneath stuff. And I don't know, is he being rushed? Is he not confident? What is your 2-week view of Sam Bradford so far in this offense?
He's not the problem. I mean, he's had some problems. He's making bad decisions, and he in his past couple of times he's played, like in 2013 when he had that half season with the Rams, he protected the football. He's not protecting the football. He's forcing passes. But you think about it. Chip Kelly in the last 2 seasons had, according to ESPN's pass protection metric, ESPN Stats and Information's pass protection metric, they had the second best pass blocking in the league the past 2 seasons. They're not getting that this year, so Bradford's not getting protected. He's got no vertical threat. They can't run the football. So, yeah, you do that with a lot of quarterbacks. You might put Aaron Rodgers in that type of mess, and he might have trouble posting good numbers. So I don't think it's Bradford. I still have a lot of faith in Bradford, and you've got to give him good blocking up front. If you get that taken care of and you get some good blocking, you can get the run game going, then you're going to get some people up and downfield, and I think we'll see the same Sam Bradford we saw in the preseason.
Well, and obviously you mentioned it, though. They don't have a deep threat. They're not running the ball very well. Their offensive line's not very good. So, do you see those things improving? I don't see a deep threat. I don't see since they let Jackson go, they have not replaced that. Maybe they run the ball a little better. They struggled running the ball early last year. But if those things have been the issue through 2 weeks that have called Bradford to struggle, why should Eagle fans think that that's going to change?
That's the thing. The only way that Kelly gets the deep pass going by getting the run game going, because his deep pass isn't, I'm going to have guys who are bigger, faster, stronger than you guys. A Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson. Doesn't have that guy who could just tear the top off a defense. His is, I'm going to get one-on-one situations. And when we get one-on-one situations, well, okay, I can get a receiver open in that scenario. In fact, a lot of receivers can get open in that scenario. But you can only get one-on-one situations if you make teams bring that eighth person in the box, bring that extra player in the box, and leave one-on-one to the outside. And so the whole thing revolves around getting the run game going. So I'm not worried too much about them getting more vertical productivity, because Bradford's history says he's gotten great vertical productivity out of a lesser set of receivers than what he has right now. But if you can't block, if you don't get the run blocking going and you don't get the pass blocking going, they're never going to get anything done. So it's all revolved around the offensive line. I'm not worried about all the skill position talent of Bradford. It all starts up front.
What about this particular week then? The skill position, wide receiver against this Jets secondary?
Revis is a bit banged up, so that's a plus. But even at 90%, he could probably cover just about anybody in the league. I like the matchup if they get against Cromartie. I like that matchup. I don't think the Jets secondary is quite as dominant as people are making it out to be. Calvin Pryor's done better this year, but he didn't do so well last year, at least in my metrics. So I think there are weaknesses that you can attack if you can get the blocking, but that's going to be a problem against the Jets' front line.
Casey Joyner with us breaking down this Jets and Eagles. We'll take a look at the game tonight and some of the other matchups around the NFL. Is the Jets' defense legit? I mean, I'm watching this team play on Monday night, and that Colts team a lot of people thought was a Super Bowl contender. The Jets just beat them up. I mean, they just absolutely dominated them. So is this Todd Bowles' Jets defense, if you're 0-2 going on the road, is this a tough matchup for an 0-2 team that desperately needs a win?
This is a very tough matchup. Bowles it's not just talent. Bowles is a very creative play caller. He's not just, it's not just that he's got good players. I mean, he's Rex Ryan when Rex Ryan is at the top of his game caliber. He can put those kind of game plans together. That's the type of defense you could be facing. So, and again, they've got the guys up front. They've got the big players, dominant players up front. If they decided to do what the Cowboys did, I don't think they will, because they rely more on power than speed. But if they decided we're going to pin our ears back and try and get straight upfield, I think the Eagles would have just as much trouble blocking them there. So I think, this is a very tough matchup for Philadelphia.
Sam Bradford and the Eagles will see this Jets defense. Where can they attack it? What if you're Chip Kelly this week? Now you might be you might not have Murray, but if you're Sam Bradford and you're Chip Kelly, what area of the Jets defense are you going after?
I'm going vertical. I'm trying to find a way to go vertical and say, look, I'm going to get I've got Aguilar. I know he's a talent. I'm going to get him going deep. I've got, if Revis is banged up, I want to test him. And I don't, again, he's Darrelle Revis, but I might test him and see if he's holding up against the injury. I'm putting Jordan Matthews all over the place and saying I'm going to throw. I would be throwing 10 passes to Jordan Matthews and 10 passes to Zach Ertz. Say if I'm, say, look, we're going to, because those are your strengths. Those are the guys who you can play, and those are both guys who can do dink and dunk passes. So fine, if you can cover Matthews and Ertz on a play, then we'll go to something else. But I'm throwing at least 10 passes to each of those guys and saying, okay, here I've got something of an offense going now. Now you've got something you've got to worry about on defense, and now once you worry about that, now I can start going and doing some other things.
Yeah, and Bradford, I mean, are you surprised at the lack of shots he has taken down the field? I mean, is that something that's supposed to be his strong suit going vertical down the field?
It has been a strong suit. It was a strong suit at Oklahoma. It was a strong suit at times in St. Louis. But I think Chip Kelly's coached him. If you've got that safety over the top, don't do it. Just don't throw the pass. The problem with that, though, is that you get the safety over the top, that takes away the deep middle of the field. I am more surprised that they're not going to the outside to say, okay, we're going to go get some vertical passes on the outside of the field, because Bradford's got a good enough arm to do that. He's not the most powerful arm in the league, but believe me, he's got there's a reason he was the number one pick in the draft. He's got enough of an arm to do that. So I would be surprised if they did some. They did some fly stop routes. They did some some comebacks and things. Did some things to say, okay, we're going to go. We're not going to challenge you guys directly. We're going to sell one thing and come back and do another. But if you want to do those routes again, you got to have pass blocking to do it.
They haven't had much of that. They've had to go to the air a lot. Now Bradford is completing 66% of those passes, but as we mentioned, not a lot of shots down the field. They didn't take a lot of shots down the field last year either. So you wonder, is that the play caller? Is that Chip Kelly? Is that just something that he does not want to do?
He'll go deep. He'll throw vertical. It's just when the situation calls for it. He wants to use the vertical game as a counterpunch to say, if you're going to bring the eighth man to the box, okay, now I'm going to go deep and make you pay for that and make you get that eighth guy out of the box, because everything about his system is, can he run the football? And again, that's the big concern, though. We've been saying it for a couple years now that if he can run the football, great. But if the Chip Kelly offense can't run the football, what's plan B? And, they don't have it.
He suggested today, Casey, that they're not taking shots down the field because teams are playing their two safeties so deep that he says, he says, I don't think we're discounting it. I think the reason we're not able to take shots down the field is because of how deep the safeties played. In Atlanta, that's part of kind of the MO of their defense. And in the Dallas game, Wilcox was our lack of running game, didn't devote anybody from the secondary to have to get into that box. So he's saying teams are playing them so deep with their safeties that they can't run past them, and because they're getting beat with the front seven of these defenses, which is showing you how inept their offense, their run game has been.
Yeah, it's a run game. The thing is, people talk about you're playing the safeties deep. Okay, you play the safeties deep. If you've got just one safety deep, you can still run go routes on the outside. If you've got a cover two, you can still run corner routes. They're hard routes to complete, but Bradford's accurate, and if you give him enough time, he can complete those passes. So, yep. I mean, you can still pass deep. You're just limited at what type of routes you can run. You can't be running, post routes against the deep safety, but you can run other things. So I buy what he's saying, but it still comes down to the offensive line, because if you can't get pass blocking, doesn't matter what you do.
He said today there's a free safety at 15 to 20 yard deep on every play that we played. So it sounds like he's trying to take a lot of the blame off himself, because the reporter followed the question up today and says, I recognize that's a difficult throw or a difficult completion, but that's why you have a great quarterback, to make difficult throws, right? And Kelly looked right through the guy as if like, are you seriously asking me that question? So I'll ask you, if you have a guy that you trust at quarterback, aren't you willing to take more shots, even if they're playing deep, for some 50-50 shots? Like, hey, Deshaun Jackson, go run after this ball. Or if I have Brandon Marshall, if I have Julio Jones, I'll take a shot throwing the ball down there and have him out jump that corner.
You got one of the best slot receivers in the NFL in Jordan Matthews. I mean, he's a top guy. Okay, run seam routes, run digs, run. There are a lot of routes you can run. A defense can never take everything away. A defense, that's one thing defensive coordinators will always say. We can't take everything away, so what do we want to take away? So you put your safety 15 yards back, you're taking away certain routes and certain concepts, but you're not taking everything away. And the thing is, if they're playing that far off, if they're playing their safeties that far back, fine, take the underneath stuff. Sam Bradford's the guy who should be able to hit these 9 and 10 yard dink and dunk passes all game long, and you've got the talent to do it. You've got the receivers to do it. You've got, that's Aguilar can do that, and Cooper can certainly get open on short passes, and Matthews can do it. So there's a lot of things. If they want to play deep, go, and if it was so easy to stop the deep pass just over the safety 15 yards deep, why would Aaron Rodgers ever complete a long pass? Why would Ben Roethlisberger complete them? I mean, it's not, your scheme don't stop everything.
I agree. I'm very frustrating listening to him today and watching them play the last couple of weeks. Let me flip it over. If you're Philly and you're getting ready for New York, where's an area where New York it really has an advantage over you?
Well, Philadelphia's pass defense has given up. They're giving up the big plays again. They made some personnel improvements, but they're giving up the big plays. And the Jets have, Decker's banged up a bit, but I mean, Marshall's looking like the Brandon Marshall, not the limited Brandon Marshall from last year, but the Brandon Marshall from a couple years ago. So I'm worried about stopping Brandon Marshall. I'm worried about they're going to power run the ball with us. If Decker's healthy, I've got two two guys I'm worried about, and can we be where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there? That touchdown pass to Terrence Williams, that was just, what are you doing playing? Like 15 yards off it. He was one of those safeties on that play, and you're giving up that kind of easy touchdown. You can't give up those kind of easy plays, and that's not. If you look at Chip Kelly's history, his defenses aren't like that, but that's what happens when they don't play with the lead. They're designed to play with a lead.
So you see Maxwell, $63 million. He comes over here. A lot of people liked him. Some people said, I'm not so sure. Is he is he incapable, or is this Billy Davis's scheme that hangs these guys out to dry?
Maxwell, if you look at his history, you don't want him playing that far off. You don't want him sitting back there playing, giving as much room as he gave on that touchdown pass we were just talking about. He's a physical cornerback. He's a physical, I'm going to go get in a receiver space and disrupt the play. That's what he does. He came from that Seattle system. That's what they do there, and that's what he's good at. So you want to do that, but again, we're talking about, do they have a plan B? The Eagles' defense is designed to play with the lead so we can pin our ears back and rush the quarterback, and then we can play off, and when the quarterback tries to throw, we can go make some picks. That's what they're designed to do, is make the big play. But if you don't have the lead, you can't do that. But that's the thing. If you don't have the lead, you can't play that system. You got to do something else. And it's frustrating as heck, because you see things and there's things they can do to improve, and we're sticking with our system. It's kind of the tack they're taking, and it's just, if it ain't working, you got to change.
All right, Casey, obviously this is a big game for Philadelphia. This Jets team plays very good defense. They've got a couple of physical receivers. If Decker ends up playing, they got another weapon there. Fitzpatrick, he's limited, but he's smart. If you look at this game right now, Philadelphia going on the road, is this a tough matchup for them to be able to win on Sunday?
I'll put it this way. The NFL experts pick we have, I think it's 12 people who pick games each week for ESPN. It's, winners and losers, and I guess the spread just straight up who's going to win the game. 11 out of the 12 people pick the New York Jets in this matchup.
Wow.
And it's that tough of a matchup. The Jets are that good of a team. They are, I wouldn't be surprised to see them make the playoffs this year.
All right, let's take a look at some games tonight. We got Washington 1-1, coming off a win. The Giants 0-2, but realistically could be 2-0. Giants at home. Are you impressed with Washington? Some people starting to come around on them a little bit. I need them to show me more. Your take on Washington?
Washington fans have been getting on my case on Twitter for bashing their defense. They're like, we're having a great defense. I'm like, you played Miami and St. Louis. You've not played any great offenses yet. I'm not saying New York's a great offense, but Washington, if you stop Odell Beckham Jr., then I'll be more convinced. The run defense is better, but all in all, I still don't trust the Washington defense, and I think that New York's going to be able to put their offense in gear and get some things going, and I think they'll get the pace game going and beat Washington tonight.
I agree with that, and same thing. I said the same thing to kick off the show. I need to see more from Washington's defense against a more capable offensive opponent. I think New York has played well offensively. What has been New York's issues? I mean, to me, they had the lead against Dallas, but I mean, it wasn't like they dominated to get the lead. I thought Dallas played poorly, but in the NFC East, they've probably played of the 8 quarters that have been played by the 4 teams. They have probably played the most good quarters of the 8.
Paul Brown, the former Browns head coach, the Hall of Famer, he said one time that when you've got your foot you've got your foot on the throat of your opponent, you never lift your foot back up to reset it. You just step down, basically saying finish your opponent off when you got your opponent finished. The Giants had both those games won, and they let their foot up off the gas. They did not keep it going, and that's just the thing. They just have to play 60 minutes rather than 57, and they'll be just fine.
All right, I want to get into Dallas and Atlanta. We've seen Atlanta turn their things around, turn their defense around with Dan Quinn. They've beaten 2 NFC East teams, which I don't know that says a whole heck of a lot. But and Dallas is 2-0 too. I haven't seen a lot from Dallas. Now no Romo, no Des Bryant. Is Atlanta a legit team to you? Are they a legit playoff contender?
They're a playoff contender, given how many teams make the playoffs. 6 teams in the playoffs a year. They're a legit contender. Problem for them is that I think they're there, but they're not quite there yet. And they've got now Tevin Coleman's going to be out, so they're going to have one running back. And as good as Julio Jones is, Roddy White's not playing quite that well, but they've got Hankerson. I see a lot of positives for them. Good thing for them is in this game they've got more playmakers than Dallas by far, and they think their defense is opportunistic enough to where they could pick off Whedon, who, as big a Whedon fan as I've been over the years, he forces a lot of passes into coverage, and if they make Dallas throw the football, I think Atlanta's going to get a few picks in that game.
Dallas, give me your overview now of Dallas without Romo and Dez, and then this NFC East could be a 6-10 champion, 7-9 maybe. I mean, what is Dallas to you? Of the 4 teams in the East, I asked this question yesterday. I'll ask you: who has the most potential as we stand right now?
The most potential
in the NFC East?
Philadelphia. Philadelphia has the most potential because I think all in all they still have the healthy quarterback. They still have the they still have the receiving core. They still have the talent, the skill position talent. They can get their offensive line to play well. They've got the most potential out of that group. If you bring Bryant and you bring Romo back, and the Cowboys are still in contention when those two come back, okay, then it's the Cowboys. With those two out, it's the Eagles.
All right. So give me your outlook on Dallas over the next 11 weeks without Romo.
They're going to play 1970s football. They're going to go back to seeing, they want to see if they can run the football 30, 40 times. I think the more they run, they need to stick with the running game no matter what, and maybe some dink and dunk throws to augment it. But they need to say you've got those 3 running backs. You've got Randall and McFadden and Dunbar. You've got all those running backs and things. Okay, use them. You need to be giving those guys as many, 10, 15 carries to each guy, or the top 2 guys, and throwing passes to Dunbar. You guys need to be working those guys as much as possible because they're only going to go as far now as that offensive line carries them.
All right, Philadelphia Jets. Who you taking?
Jets. Hate to say it. Jets are just.
You don't have to apologize. You can be objective. You're allowed.
They're in a better place right now.
Washington, New York tonight. Who you got?
I got New York outpacing and outscoring Washington. Washington will play better, but New York's going to outpace and outscore them. Dallas,
Atlanta. Who you taking?
I'm taking Atlanta. Don't trust Brandon Whedon.
Wow. All right. So we will have a 1-2, 0-3, 1-2, and 2-1 NFC East. You don't have to watch the games this Sunday. We just told you all the answers that you need right there. Casey Joyner, every Thursday at this time, we take a look inside the NFC East and all the matchups there. As you heard them, Atlanta goes on the road. That's one thing. I mean, to me, Atlanta stinks on the road. Them and Washington need to show me. And show me you can win on the road in the division. Show me you can go to Dallas and win even when Dallas is banged up. That's what I need to see from those 2 teams. And I same thing with the Eagles. Show me you can go on the road and take on this Jets team. All right, man. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds great, man. Appreciate it.
There's Casey Joyner at Casey Joyner TFS. He likes Jets over Philadelphia. He likes Atlanta over Dallas. And he likes New York over Washington.